The microphone, the focal point of the camera is from the pine down to the other side. So that's the focal point of the camera.
Okay, is this good?
Yeah,
So I'm not standing in front of the museum, is that?
yeah. So, that one.
Is it on? No?
This one. Just so, just get a reminder, just get a little on that side.
Yeah, but then I'm right there.
You're on the pine. That's good.
No, but I'm right in front of the projector.
No, you have to be around here. There you go.
You got to get all this electronic stuff right, or you get blind if you stand there. So, good evening, and thank you for coming on roads that were so awful. So I hope you go slow home and get there. So my name is Patty Vold, and yes, some of you have asked. The only rodeos I do are in the back pasture, totally unplanned, with those usually a heifer. And with the auction market, Max, that did not work well. We sell the cows on Wednesday, pick up the checks on Thursday, and we don't golf. So those are all the questions, and yes, we are related to all of them. So I grew up in southern Alberta, but I've lived here east of Ponoka for 40 plus years. I have Shwaka kids and 14 grandkids, ranging from 20 to 4 months. So I just want to really welcome you, because I've asked a few people if you've never been to an event before. Are you going to ask the question? Do you want me to ask the question? Okay, how many of you have never been to an APP or an independence type meeting? Welcome, welcome, welcome. How many of you are kind of not really sure about independence, kind of sitting on the fence? Oh, that's unusual, by the way. Usually we have a small smattering, and by the time they leave, they're off the fence. So the bathrooms are to the back, to your right. The exits are obviously marked. There's 3 of them here. There is coffee and tea and water and snacks at the back. So help yourself. If in the middle of somebody's talk, they don't really care if you get up and go get yourself a coffee. So feel free to do that. We have a membership and volunteer lists at the back. And then if you haven't signed the intent to say yes, so we're just collecting people's names and addresses and phone numbers. So when we get the okie dokie to go collect signatures, we've already got your name, number, we can contact you and tell you where to come to sign it. So that's what that information is for. It's to help us. Do you mind this up closer, or you got it? So there'll be no questions during the presentations, but there will be a question and answer afterwards. So hold your questions till the end. So those who are new to Alberta Prosperity Project, how many people had not heard about it? Like the actual Alberta Prosperity Project? A few, yeah. And it's amazing. I wear an Alberta Prosperity Project hoodie a lot, and I'm realizing that a lot of people, there we are, yeah, we wear our merch, that people don't really know what it stands for. So we're working on that. The Alberta Prosperity Project is nonpartisan, not-for-profit educational society. Our mission is to educate, inspire, and advocate for all Albertans about the benefits of freedom and prosperity through independence. This movement began in May 2021 in a humble oil field shop in Nisku, Alberta, where a group of Albertans, tired of the inefficiencies of our provincial leadership and the overreach from Ottawa, decided it was time to act. Out of those humble beginnings, the Alberta Prosperity Project was born, and here we are today. One of the things people ask me is, how many signatures do we have registered for those who have ready to go and check the box for yes? Over 230,000. So we already have the right numbers, but thank you, we need more. So if you have signed it, I want you to go on there, especially if you've got a smartphone, and put the link on your phone and send it out to everybody you know. Let's get those numbers up, because if we get the signatures for like 1 million, there is no doubt of what Albertans want. And then there's the referendum after that. But if we can just get the petition signatures, we got to beat that Lukasik stuff. As Jeff Rath calls him, Little Timmy. What? Fabio? Fabio. Yeah. We usually start out our APP meetings in prayer, and my friend wrote this. And so if you would all join me in prayer. God, keep Alberta forever in the palm of your hand. As we spread our wings to be all you've created us to be, may we stay forever free. Help us to serve each other in a way that brings honor and glory to you. When we wander and become self-seeking, I pray you will guide us back to the truth and the light that sets us free. We were born for such a time as this, and I ask for the strength and wisdom we need to move mountains, people, and obstacles that stand in the way of Alberta being all you created it to be. Your word says, seek ye first the kingdom of God, then everything else will be added. Show us the way to do this. Make it clear. Provide godly leaders to lead Alberta in a way that brings honor and glory to you in everything we do. In Jesus' name, amen. Our country was built on Judeo-Christian beliefs. And if we took that out of what we got going on in our laws and everything, we got nothing. So I know a lot of people are not believers, and that's okay. But just remember, that's where everything started. So our first speaker tonight is Kathy Flett. I got to turn to the page. She'll explain more, because this is not great. Albertan women and their supporters who stand together, she's with a group of women, Women's Independence Network, and they stand together to promote freedom and Alberta sovereignty, engaging in educational opportunities, community building, dignified dialogue, and mutual respect as we explore the complex issues faced by Alberta's future. You will enjoy this.
Thank you very much. I hope you do enjoy it. I turned 52 last month, and 2 presentations that I did after that, I realized I'm going to need my glasses for more than driving because I can't see squat. So I smartened up this time and remembered them. A little bit of history about me. I have been part of this crazy independence movement now for 6 years. I began in the Wexit world, if anybody remembers that, way back when. Seems like a lifetime ago when it was really not that long ago. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot during that time. And then, of course, Wexit exploded. There's quite a story behind that. And from there, I landed with the Freedom Conservative Party that used to be a provincial party. And then that party changed its name to the Wild Rose Independence Party of Alberta, not to be confused with the original Wild Rose Party of Alberta. And then that kind of exploded, and I learned a lot. And then everything just sort of fizzled out. And we were like, well, that sucks. This is no good. And then it began to rise up again. About last March, we started to see some things begin to really, really happen. And while I was on that journey through all of those political parties, I made a very good friend in Angela Tabak. And she and I were kind of 2 peas in a pod, if you will, with this whole movement. And one of the things that we learned with independence, and particularly the political side of it and the things that take place, is that within these parties and even in the groups now, there's always this conversation that, oh, it's just egos and infighting, and it's just, conservatives eating their own, and that's why all of this stuff happens, and they all break apart and fall apart. That's only half right, is what I learned in that whole entire journey. Actually, what happens is that the powers that be that cannot handle the idea of Alberta becoming its own nation, and those powers are pretty big, they find the low-hanging fruit in those groups or in those parties and say, hey, what if I gave you this or that? And then those folks go, yeah, I think I would accept that. And they go, okay, well, all you have to do is destroy it. And they do. And that's what we have seen every single time. Every single time. So this time around, we've gotten a little bit smarter. And we no longer have a group, right? It drives me bananas when I hear, oh, you guys all have to get under one banner. No, we don't. Because if we've got APP doing this, myself and Angela doing that, and I'll explain what we're doing here in a second, and then we've got these guys over here talking about this, and these guys over there talking about that, we're all talking about the same thing. We're all talking about Alberta independence, which is fabulous, but because we're not all under one banner, the folks that do not want to see this happen have got one hell of a game of whack-a-mole in front of them, right? And we're seeing that. They are losing because this movement just continues to grow no matter what they throw at it. It doesn't matter what they do. We continue to grow. So back in March, my friend Angela, I'll go back to that, she calls me up one day and she says, Kathy, I have an idea. And I went, okay, that usually means I'll probably be part of this idea. So what are we doing? And she says, one thing we always noticed is that the women were missing when we were doing the stuff we were doing to try and build the Wild Rose Independence Party of Alberta. They were there, but not a lot of them. Politics is yucky, and a lot of women don't want to get into that. So, and what could we do to get the women involved in this? And I was like, I don't want to do that. My gosh, like then we're going to be branded as feminists, and I'm not. And I had all these reasons why I didn't want to do it. And then the Lord said, well, you're doing it. And I was like, okay, I'm doing it. So we came up with this delivery of the message that speaks particularly to how we think, how women think. And it has been so much fun since March to share it with people for two reasons. One, because we're seeing the women go, oh, I get it now. And two, we're seeing the men go, oh, I know why she didn't get it now. Like it's just, it's true. And so it's been equipping everybody. And it has exploded greater than what we ever thought possible. The other thing that we did was say, you know what, I know maybe you don't want to go to the rallies or you're not comfortable in these larger group settings. We'll come to you. You put on a pot of coffee, I'll go anywhere. Ask them tonight. I was the first one to say, is that coffee ready? Like, it's all good. And so we've been doing that. We've been literally traveling the province. One of our friends deemed us the Thelma and Louise of Alberta. We've been traveling the province. No, nobody's dead yet, though, so it's good. But we've been traveling the province, just doing these little home meetings with 8, 10 people, sometimes just women, sometimes both men and women. And it's working, obviously, because they're freaking out. The powers that be are not happy about this. So then that continued on, and that was great. Somebody saw the presentations that we were doing and said, you know what, you need to get out a little bit more. And so we did, and then the next thing we knew, APP was asking us to speak, and here I am in front of you. So that's kind of the history of how this all came to be. And full disclosure, I'm an Alberta girl born and raised. This is everything I know. It's all that I love, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm fighting. And that's what's going to happen. While I was on this journey of the Alberta independence thing, I discovered there's a lot of our history that we don't know. And in order to figure out how we got to get to where we want to go, sometimes we got to just have a quick look in the rearview mirror to figure out how we got to where we are to begin with. And so that's what I like to share with people when I do these presentations, because honestly, our problems go way back. The people of the Northwest are allowed but a degree more control of their affairs than the serfs in Siberia. That's a pretty powerful statement, isn't it? Any idea who said that? Frank Oliver. You know downtown Edmonton, that chunk that's called Oliver? Named after this guy. Publisher of Edmonton's first newspaper. He said that in 1885. We weren't even a province yet. And what he means by saying the Northwest, it's because Alberta was a district in the province of the Northwest Territories. We were a district within that. So that's where, yeah, a territory. Some of the maps call it a district too. Some of you probably know this one. We desire, every patriotic Canadian desires that the great trade of the prairie shall go to enrich our own people in the East, to build up the factories and the workshops of Eastern Canada and contribute in every way to its prosperity. The Minister of Interior, Sir Clifford Sifton, said that in 1904, and I'm going to explain to you why he said that as we go. But this is where Elbows Up began. Nothing new under the sun, is there? So if we go back in time to when those quotes were said, mostly the 1904 one, more so than the 1885, we were being advertised as the last best West. Come on, can bring everybody to Alberta, pack up the wife and kids, bring everybody, let's go, this is the land of milk and honey. They didn't tell anybody about all the snakes in the south, and they certainly didn't tell anybody about minus 50 in the north, but just come anyway. We're going to give you a chunk of land. You got 3 years to do something with it, and if you do that, we'll give it to you for free. And people came from everywhere, everywhere. Most of us are from those people that came from everywhere, and predominantly from the U.S., shockingly. But they came and they conquered and they were ready to roll up their sleeves and get to work because that's what this province was built on. But there were some problems. The closest politician was hundreds of miles away, the provincial politician, and the closest federal politician, of course, was thousands of miles away. And we could not email yet. It didn't exist. Couldn't even call anybody, and Canada Post has always been Canada Post. So these guys said, you know what? We need autonomy. We can't get anything done. You guys want us to get permits for this and permission for that, but you're not here. We need autonomy. Not only do we need autonomy, we need some local representation. Is any of this sounding familiar to anybody? So they batted around some ideas, and one popped up above all the others. Let's create the province of Buffalo. Let's take Alberta and Saskatchewan as we know them today and create one province. Well, Haultain was our premier at the time. He was actually a really great guy. If you ever are bored one day and you want to do some research, he's worth researching. He was a really great guy. And he, of course, he had to look after all the Northwest Territories, all of those, all that light blue. That was all his domain to deal with. And he says, you know what, this is great. Let's give you this so I can go focus on that. So he, of course, he decided, you know what, I'm going to take that idea to Ottawa, where all great ideas go to die. And they said, no, absolutely not. Because if by some chance this boom that's taking place continues to boom, and their population is bigger than ours, the balance of power is going to shift. We cannot allow this to happen. That is the truth of it all. Ottawa said no. They took an eraser, a ruler, and a pencil, and they created Alberta and Saskatchewan. We were literally colonized. That's what happened. We were literally colonized. And a lot of people will say, oh, no, you negotiated your way in. No, we didn't, actually. When the Dominion of Canada was first created, it was Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, and Manitoba. Those were the 4 provinces that first started out the Dominion of Canada. New Brunswick negotiated their way in. Manitoba mostly negotiated their way in. Ottawa was still a little cranky about the whole Louis Riel thing, but there were still some talks. Because, you know, who would want autonomy and property rights? BC even negotiated their way in. Remember, the U.S. was coming up that west coast because they wanted to connect with Alaska. And Ottawa said, oh, no, you don't. We're going to take BC. Forget that. And so they did. Might be regretting it now, but whatever. That's what they did. The other maritime provinces also negotiated their way in. Newfoundland was the last one. In 1950, they held out for a really long time. We did not. We were told this is how it's going to be. We have the Alberta Act of 1905, the Saskatchewan Act of 1905, and we were appointed a Liberal premier. We didn't even get to have an election to elect our first premier. I just learned that one the other day. You're always learning new things doing this. So fast forward a few years, and this is what our country looks like today. You can see some of the land masses changed around a little bit. But when we look at the Westminster system that we're governed under, it has two houses, right? The upper and the lower. So the upper is the Senate, the lower is the House of Commons, where the MPs are. Over the years, some changes have been made, and eventually these guys all settled on how many Senate seats each province would have. Now remember, everybody negotiated their way into this except for us, right? So they talked about how many Senate seats they're going to have, and they allotted them accordingly, so you can see that Ontario and Quebec each have 24. The Maritime provinces collectively have 24. Newfoundland has 6. Each of the Western provinces have 6. What do you notice about that map? A little lopsided? A little lopsided. And these numbers are set in stone. They don't change. Doesn't matter. They don't change. This is how it's going to be. So now if we contrast that with seats in the House of Commons, those are the numbers below the Senate. We see BC 43, we've got 37, on and on and on we go. Ontario 122, Quebec 78, and the Maritime provinces 10, 11, 4, and 7. Anything you notice there? A little heavy on one side, isn't it? Oh, but Kathy, it's representation by population. Isn't that what we're always told? Yeah. Do you also notice that these numbers over here are really close? Like 4 and 4 for Prince Edward Island, right? 10 and 11, 10 and 10, 6 and 7. I'm going to explain to you why here as we go. But let's first go back to representation by population. Let's see if that holds true. Prince Edward Island, just about 45,000 people per senator. Newfoundland, almost 91,000 per senator. And I just picked arbitrary, like going across. Quebec, 377,000 per senator. Manitoba, 229. Alberta. Is that representation by population? No. No, it's not. Okay, but maybe it's better in the members of parliament. Let's go to the other house. Let's see. Prince Edward Island, same amount, which makes sense, right? Because they have the same amount of MPs as they do senators. Newfoundland, 78,000 per MP. Quebec, 116. Manitoba, 100 and almost 7. Alberta, 132,000. Is that representation by population? No. This is a problem because this is all written in our Constitution. So let's go back to how come the Maritime provinces' numbers are so close. Does anybody know? No? Because once upon a time ago, somebody had this brilliant idea in Ottawa that they should just absolutely solidify all those Senate seat numbers. This is what they're going to be. But on top of that, you could never have fewer MPs than you do senators. It's called the senatorial clause. You could never have fewer MPs than you do senators. So that's why Prince Edward Island has 4 of each. They can't have fewer MPs than the 4 senators they're allowed to have, which means if Prince Edward Island had only 8 adults that were all Canadian citizens, they'd all have a government job. That's all that's required. They probably do now. Yeah, they do. Prince Edward Island's actually in a lot of trouble if anybody's paying attention to them. But that's how that happened. So it's completely misbalanced. It's completely unbalanced, as everybody knows. And when I tell people this and help them understand, the first thing they say, well, Kathy, we're Canadians. We're fair. We're fun. We're nice. Let's fix it. Let's fix it. They'll understand. The people in the East, we just have to show them. We just haven't tried hard enough. That's my favorite. All right, let's open up the Constitution. Because that's how we fix it. That's the only way, is to open. You already know the answer, don't you? It's the only way to fix it. So in order to do that, we need 7 provinces, so 6 other premiers, because ours will definitely go for this, we know that, and 50% of the population. So if we look at this map, which provinces are we going to get to say, hey, yeah, let's, you're right, Alberta really got shafted and we need to fix this. It's been a minute. We need to fix this up for them. Who's going to hang out with us on that? Nobody? There might be a few, right? Saskatchewan probably could. Newfoundland might even. They've been finding out that, boy, when you make money, Ottawa sure likes to take it. But that's probably it. Something that a lot of people don't consider is, as I just showed you, at this particular moment, we don't have the numbers to really have any kind of equality in Parliament. So what if all of these other provinces said, yeah, you know what, that's a great idea. Let's open up the Constitution and renegotiate it. And they make it worse. Because they could. They really could. And I don't think it makes sense to risk that. So away we go. Some other things. Now we've seen how it's lopsided over there, that there's really no hope to be able to change that Constitution. And then the next thing that I hear from people is go, well, okay, Kathy, I get all of that, but like we're still Canadians. We still, we're supposed to be this great big family. Okay, well, let's see what the headlines tell us about being a Canadian. Nearly half of Canadians report that rising prices are greatly impacting their ability to meet day-to-day expenses. We're seeing that even here. Did we vote for that? No. There's the debt clock. $1.3 trillion. Your share of that is over $30,000. Cost of the debt that per day is almost $110 million. Per hour goes up $4.5 million. Do you know that there is now more money spent on the interest of that debt than on health care? Combined. Like the whole country. Combined. The amount collected in GST now covers the interest. Did we vote for that? No. I don't know why people think we should have to pay for it. And now we got this guy. Yeah. Canadian food banks recorded nearly 2.2 million visits in a single month. Poverty and hunger becoming the new normal in Canada. Cost of living soars. More Canadians are relying on food banks. I volunteer at our food bank in Sherwood Park every Monday, almost every Monday. It's true. It's absolutely true. And for a country that's supposed to be so rich, we shouldn't even have food banks. Well, we are, but that's when we're our own country. New report warns that the WHO health rules erode Canada's democracy and charter rights. Pretty sure COVID showed us we don't have any charter rights. The WHO didn't need to show up to make that happen, but now it's official. John Carpe, do you guys follow him? Oh my gosh, hey? If 3 bills pass, Canada could be a police state by Christmas. The Strong Borders Act, Combating Hate Act, gives government the ability to ban you from the internet. We didn't vote for this. And then it just keeps going on. Supreme Court strikes down mandatory minimum sentence for child porn. When the country stops protecting the children, it's over. It's over. This does not represent Alberta at all. We have other ways of dealing with those people that I'm not allowed to say. More than half of Canadians no longer feel safe in their neighborhoods. When did that happen? Like how? How? It's just crazy to me. Then there's another one. Number of non-Canadian, this is crazy. Number of non-Canadian federal inmates continues to rise. Here's my question. If somebody comes to this country and then breaks our laws, why are we feeding them in a prison? Give them a boat and a paddle and say goodbye. See you later. This is, I get just crazy. Oh, but hang on, there's more, because people don't believe this stuff. MP is outraged after man who raped an Ontario girl given time to consider how guilty plea would affect his immigration status. Isn't that insane? Niagara police warn public of 700% increase in human trafficking. This is not our Canada. This is not what we built. This little sign here I saw at the U of A. Revolution against the billionaires. Join the communist. Marxist.ca/join. They were everywhere all over campus. Now we can go through all of the numbers and all the reasons why Alberta would be so much better off on our own as a country. But at the end of the day, our values are misaligned. What goes on in Ottawa does not represent us. It really never has. But it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And we're just being expected to go along as good little Canadians. And how dare we not want to participate and partake in all of this? We have a federal government that isn't protecting our children, that is not protecting our communities, that is not protecting our families, is not protecting our jobs. Isn't that awesome? 1,000 steel workers just lost their jobs this week. Just 'cause. You know what industry needs a lot of steel? The one that builds pipelines. Do you think it's any accident that that happened? Not at all. Not at all. Let's talk about the MOU a little bit. I called it the Memorandum of Unicorn Farts the other day because that's about what it is. It's a nothing. And then I thought, well, maybe I'm just, maybe I just didn't go to school long enough and I haven't figured it out. So I went and listened to a whole bunch of smart people, and they agree. It's nothing. Maybe by 2035, maybe by 2040 we'll have a pipeline. Well, but they didn't even negotiate anything, right? Like it's a promise. It's a promise to appear at another meeting. That's what it is. And we're supposed to be okay with this. And I think it's time to be done with being okay with this. I think it's time for us to say, you know what? I'm Albertan and I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry. We will take our future into our own hands. We'll protect our children. We'll protect our homes. How ridiculous is it that our premier has to state in front of the whole country that she is going to make sure that the RCMP here in Alberta know that if you had to protect your home from somebody, you will not be prosecuted. How dumb is that? How dumb is that? It's time to do something. Like the time for talking about it is over. It's over. Well, I don't know that we need to go vigilante. We don't need to do that. But we do need to make sure that everybody knows we have an option. Our friends, our family, our neighbors. This is literally the talk of the province. And we can debate all the numbers. We can go through the CPP. We can go through how much more money we'll have when we're not paying equalization anymore. We can go through all the freedoms that we'll have. We can do all of that. And I do all of that, depending on the setting. What we're not doing enough of is showing these headlines. We are misaligned. Our values don't match anymore. And when that happens, it's time to go. Now, is it going to be a little bit of a bumpy ride? Absolutely. If you think Ottawa's going to make this easy, you're fooling yourself. But that doesn't make it impossible. That doesn't make it impossible. And we've got more and more people who are seeing it, who are understanding it, And if there's anything that I can do to help you help others see and understand it, like I said, all you gotta do is put on a pot of coffee and I'd be more than happy. I'll go wherever to come and chat and to help answer some of those tougher questions that we have, because there are a lot of questions. Nobody's done this before, so there are some unknowns, but that doesn't mean it isn't doable. So thank you very much.
Got it. Quick story. I heard a reel on Facebook today. This guy is obviously from Edmonton because he's telling a story about the Royal Alec. And I have 4 kids from Haiti, so I am not racist. I got kids that are nieces and nephews that are part Indian, both continents. And this guy was saying that the Somalian gangs in Edmonton and everywhere are so vicious. They brought their war here, and they fight with machetes. And they had a guy on the table in the emergency at the Royal Alec, and his guts were all over the floor. There was about 12 to 15 Somalis outside with guns and machetes. They sent 2 Edmonton police officers. 2. When the surgeon went out and said, he died, all the Somalis left because they were standing there waiting for him to be alive and they were going to finish the job. Why wasn't the tactical team called? Like, seriously, why weren't guys in helmets and the flak jackets and called and all those guys put in jail and then given a paddle? Like, that's crazy. Yeah. At the AGM this weekend, I talked to this young fellow, obviously from India, about 27 years old. He says, this is ridiculous. He said, I worked so hard to get here. So hard. And all these other people that come in, and they are just bringing their problems, their wars here, which is why they wanted to leave. And they didn't have to go through all the paperwork. So when Alberta becomes its own, I think there's going to be hopefully a lot of canoes and paddles given, even though we are landlocked. We can put them on the train. If anybody knows that, what is it? What reference is that? It's to some, right? Put them on the train. So the next guy to speak is standing at the back. How many of you have ever eaten at the Whistle Stop Cafe? So Chris Scott from Mere, Alberta, which doesn't take me very long, about half an hour to get there across country, is, I got this little spiel. Owner-operator of the Whistle Stop Cafe in Mere, Alberta, former interim CEO of APP. Chris is a courageous defender and advocate of Albertans' rights and freedoms. Presents in a manner that is very relatable and motivates a call to action from the audience. So you guys have to relate and react. That's what it just says here. I didn't write it. Chris Scott. Oh, Chris Scott, it's your turn. Oh, and we're supposed to be over. Oh, he moved that. Good. Okay. Oh, you got one of your own.
And it even works.
Kathy and I had to share.
When you said my name, I was just waiting for more. I thought you were going to continue. Chris Scott is getting larger than he was before. Oh, okay. Well, good evening, everybody. How is everybody doing tonight? I have a question to ask of you. First of all, I want to say thank you for coming out on this kind of not the greatest weather night. It was raining and slush the whole way from Mere, which is 80% of why I was late. But I got to ask you, how many people in this room are not on board with the idea of an independent Alberta? Now, be honest. No. No, you put up your hand and I'll share a cookie with you and I'll talk to you after. Okay, so I did that for a reason. I want to let you folks know that the vast majority of the people who are attending these events, and actually, sorry, one more question. How many people here is this your first time at an Alberta Prosperity Project event? Okay. Now, here's what I've noticed. Number one, the vast majority of people that attend Alberta Prosperity Project events right now are on board with the idea of Alberta independence. Or they're like me and they're extremely excited at the prospect of an independent Alberta, and they're going to work their asses off to make it happen. The second thing I've noticed is that almost every single meeting, there's about half the room is new people. That's pretty cool. And I'm assuming that if you're on board with the idea of Alberta independence, and this is the first meeting you've been to, you've just been kind of feeling this or thinking this for a while, and the events of the last few months have kind of culminated in your can we use the word transition? From a forever Canadian person to an independent Albertan, right? Now, I don't have to convince the people in this room that an independent Alberta is what we need. I mean, Kathy did a great job of that. I'm sure you have your eyes wide open and you're watching what's going on in the province, in the country, and around the world. And you know that Alberta must do this so that we can be the beacon of freedom in this land. And I don't say this country because we wouldn't be part of the country anymore. That's why we have to do it. So now the question is, if we know these things and we're taking the time to come out to these events, how do we turn this kind of what's the word, motivation into action and get it done? What do we do? What is it that we have to do? The facts speak for themselves, right? Math is pretty darn easy, especially the level of math that's done in Parliament. I mean, we know how much we pay in taxes. We know how much the federal government gets. We know how much leaves Alberta, never to return. We know what we could have that we don't have right now because the system, the structure is imbalanced. We know all those things. But there's people out there that you can tell this to them. You can speak facts and truth until you're blue in the face. And they're going to turn to you and they're going to say, well, you're a traitor and we're always going to be Canadian because we're Canadian. That's not a fact-based or an evidence-based statement. That's 100% an emotional response to something. So what I found happening is that people, and I'm guilty of this too, and I'm sure some of you are, we hear something, we hear certain words or phrases or sounds or whatever, and it triggers something in our brain that causes an emotional response. And oftentimes that emotional response puts up a barrier to the facts, to the truth. We don't want to hear the truth because we feel something different than what the truth would offer us. We don't want to hear the truth because the truth is going to make us very uncomfortable in that it may potentially mean that we have to do some work. It might potentially mean that we have to have difficult conversations with our friends and our family and our neighbors that we just don't want to have, right? Because for years, we have been trained as polite Canadians to not rock the boat. Don't talk about religion. Don't talk about politics. Don't talk about this. Don't talk about that. Oh, how's this sports team doing? But we don't talk about the two things that are the most important things in our life. Our religion is everything. That is our eternal soul. Why would we not be talking about that important thing? Politics is, it governs every aspect of your life from before you're born until after you're dead. And these are the two things that we're taught, we're trained, we're conditioned to not talk about. Well, now we have to start talking about it. Because we've ignored it for so long, we've allowed this political leviathan to all but swallow up what's left of our freedoms and our futures. And you might not think, oh, it's not that bad right now, right? I mean, what freedoms have we really lost? I could go on and on and on. But if you simply look at what's going on in Parliament right now, and you think about what's occurred over the last 5 years, I want you to ask yourself, if those things happened, what could be next? And not only what could be next, but what will be next. I'm 46 years old. I'm a natural-born Canadian. And in my lifetime, I have attended an illegal church service that the state deemed illegal. I have attended illegal gatherings for political purpose, including the very first Alberta Prosperity Project meeting in Leduc, where we had to meet under cover of darkness in a shop so that the state didn't get us. I'm a Canadian citizen. I'm 46 years old, and I was compelled by a judge to tell you that the government needs you to know that vaccines are safe and effective and everyone should get them. I was compelled by a judge to say those things prior to me telling you the truth about what I'd learned. I'm a Canadian citizen, and I have witnessed pastors being arrested for holding services with their congregation. And I'm sure there's some people out there who are still going to say, oh, you know, it was for the greater good. These things had to happen because of, what was it? Because of? No, it wasn't because of COVID. It was control, and it was because of fear. It's because men like me, possibly people like you, listened to what the government was saying. We knew something was wrong. We could feel it. And we didn't say anything because we were fearful of the consequence. If you haven't yet, I would encourage you to watch Bonhoeffer. Watch that film. Bonhoeffer. It's an Angel Studios film. It's about a man in Germany, Nazi Germany, who witnessed a movement taking over reality and shifting people's views. It went from, polite kind of political slogans in the church to people coming into the church and replacing Bibles with Bibles that promoted what the state wanted. And good people saw this happening and they didn't say anything. Evil triumphs when good people fail to speak up or act. So when you look at someone like me sounding the alarm saying, hey, we're losing our freedoms and there's a potential for much more to happen, if you have this, if you're going to default to the, oh, well, we live in a free country, it couldn't happen here, I will remind you that not very long ago there were people in a little country called Venezuela that said the same thing. They said the same thing. Huge oil reserves, rich country, beautiful country, amazing place, grow food 365 days a year. And in the course of 11 years, that place was turned into such a, am I allowed to say shithole? Oh, I did. It was turned into such a shithole that people literally walked from where they were at to other countries. And they didn't drive because they couldn't afford gasoline anymore. And it was this idea that, someone else is going to save us. We don't have to say anything because someone will fix these problems. A politician will fix it. So all those good people failed to say anything. And then I always bring this up because this is a real life experience of mine. I worked in Colombia, and I actually watched those people walking through Colombia into parts of Colombia or into Ecuador or wherever they were heading. I witnessed that. I witnessed thousands of people walking on the highway as I was driving by from the airport to my field office because they were fleeing a country that they completely lost. And yes, that is an extreme example. It's an extreme example, but we have an extremely plausible path to something like that here. Right now, the federal government is talking about passing a bill that would criminalize religious speech. If I say Jesus Christ is King of Kings and Muhammad is a false prophet, somebody could say, that's hate speech, and they could jail me for it, even though I'm speaking the truth. If I said, no, I'm sorry, sir, just because you changed your outward appearance does not make you a woman, and I believe that's actually extremely disrespectful to women, I would go to jail for hate speech. But it's the truth. And this is in Canada. This is in what's supposed to be the freest country on earth. But what's happening is those freedoms they're not being attacked directly. They're being removed through other ways. In the name of something, in the name of inclusivity, in the name of climate, in the name of health, in the name of safety. in the name of reconciliation. And so the charter rights and the Constitution that we believed was our shield against tyranny, what made this country great, what made it free, is being revealed to be not really worth the paper it's printed on. And here's the capitalist in me. I thought about this a while ago, what the charter was actually worth, because I've lived through this. I tried to use the charter to stand up for my rights, specifically my right to protest. Didn't work. I went to jail anyway. And I realized it's kind of like toilet paper. So you know what I did? I made toilet paper with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms on it. So if you're ever at the Whistle Stop Cafe, you can buy one. They're very expensive, by the way. So we see these little things. We feel the pot heating up just a little bit, day by day, a little more, a little more. And for years, I'll talk about myself right now, for years, I have failed to do anything or speak out because, number one, I was probably fearful of what people would think. Number two, I was waiting for someone to save me. And number three, I was just too lazy. And all of those things led up to a point where I was arrested and jailed for protesting in this country. For standing up for my rights. And not just my rights, for standing up for your rights too. I could have ended this like a long time ago and taken a settlement from the government. I'm sure, suing privately, individually is much, much faster. You don't get your name dragged through the mud. You don't have to put up with the BS attacks that you get on social media, attacking your character because you're trying to stand up for yourself. I could have done that. I didn't, because specifically to do with Alberta businesses on average lost $186,000 through the restrictions. $186,000. Most business owners in their 10th year of business might have $186,000 saved up for their retirement. So now all these businesses in Alberta that went through all of these things because good men like me, lazy men like me, and good men and women like you failed to stand up and say something, they're starting over. So we have to do something different. We cannot allow this to continue. The next thing, probably going to be something to do with the climate, although our good friend Bill Gates might have thrown a wrench in those gears. He really let the cat out of the bag, didn't he? It's not like we haven't been saying that there was no such thing as catastrophic climate change, but whatever. At least he's on board now. We have to do something. And not so much now, but very frequently in the last 5 years, I've said this to people, and they say to me, yeah, Chris, we just have to elect this person. Okay, well, that's not going to fix anything, and I know that because I'm not blind, and I can read, and I've seen what's happened over the last 20 years in politics, and not one of those people has done a damn thing to save us from anything. Oh, Chris, we just have to change the Constitution, amend the Constitution, or we need to get a court ruling that sets precedent. Hasn't happened. Not going to happen. It just won't. It won't happen. Okay, let's open the Constitution and change it. Let's fix this problem that Alberta has in that we could not even go to the ballot box. And at 8:30, 9 o'clock p.m. voting day, we know who the Prime Minister is because our votes don't have much weight. I used to say we don't get a vote or our votes don't matter, but that's not true. Our votes have such little weight that we can't effectively influence the outcome of the election. And if that's true, if we can't get enough people together and say, we don't like the direction we're going to vote for something different, and we're going to put enough people in there that they make laws that are benefiting our values and what we want for our future, if we can't do that, and yet we pay taxes and support that system, is that called democracy? That's called tyranny. That's called representation or taxation without representation. And not so long ago, a group of people went to war over a 2% tax without representation. And we pay upwards of like 48 or 50 or something. I got off track there. What I'm trying to get at is we cannot change those things. Even if by some miracle we managed to convince the other provinces and the federal government that we needed to fix the Constitution, open it up, We're going to have a constitutional convention. We're going to fix it. We're going to fix the representation by population deficit that we have in Alberta. We're going to amend equalization or just get rid of it. We're going to get rid of these, all of these pieces of federal legislation that kneecap Alberta and Saskatchewan and British Columbia. We're going to do all those things. Even if that could happen, and I think, Kathy, you went through the criteria for that, it ain't going to happen. Now we have another looming threat. The constitutional amendments, that was kind of our last path to fixing Confederation. But now, how many people in this room have read a book called Values? It's on my desk right now, and I'm in the midst of reading it. That book is written by our Prime Minister, and it explains what he sees as necessary for us to continue our survival. And one of the key phrases in there goes something like, the ordinary man, and that's you and me, not him. He doesn't think he's ordinary. The ordinary man may lose freedoms or be uncomfortable to sustain so that we can survive. The ordinary man. He talks about state control being necessary to our survival, and not just state control like we're going to nationalize our energy and give you 25-cent gas at the pumps. No, we're talking state control that tells you where you can live, how far you can drive, what you can eat, when you can eat it, where you're going to work, all those types of things. It's like a page, it's like it's directly out of the NDP manifesto that you can no longer find online. So imagine that our Constitution gets open. Oh, and he's publicly said that they want to look at the notwithstanding clause to prevent provinces from shielding themselves from federal legislation. Now imagine we open that Constitution knowing that Alberta, BC, and Saskatchewan together, and we're more or less aligned on most things except for the troublesome areas, like Winnipeg and Vancouver and Edmonton. Imagine if that Constitution was open and they started changing things that removed our ability to even consider standing up for ourselves. They removed the notwithstanding clause, which, by the way, was the very part of the Constitution that got Alberta to agree to sign it in the first place. We were one of, there was 8 premiers that weren't going to sign that document because it took too much control from the provinces to the federal government. The notwithstanding clause, that was the bargaining chip they used. So imagine that's all gone. Imagine while they're at it, they get rid of the ability of a province to leave legally and lawfully. It goes from a comfortable-ish arranged marriage to something completely different. And, I'm not trying to scare you or anything, but I just want you to understand what could happen if we fail to act. And there are people right now who want these things to happen. They want that control. They want Alberta to be forever Canadian and stuck in Confederation. They want that. They want the great trade of the prairies to continue building up their workshops and factories and contributing in every way to its prosperity. But even so much more than that, in a free democracy, if you cannot effectively influence the outcome of your future by participating in that democracy, you do not live in a democracy at all. And at the end of the day, that's why I've been an advocate for an independent Alberta. It's not because I'm annoyed that we pay too much taxes. It's not because I'm annoyed that we send $27 billion to other provinces every year for which we get nothing back, except for, we get to read the news about our veterans dying in the cold in Edmonton and Calgary every year. It's not even that the federal government is trying to interfere in our industry. Those things, we're always going to have things that we disagree with when we live in a big group together. But if you can't change it, if there's no way for you to pursue the future that your values align with, that is a very, very big problem. A very big problem. So the Alberta Prosperity Project, our mission is to educate Albertans as to the benefits and the merits of Alberta independence. And I think for everyone in this room, you've heard the facts. They speak for themselves. The benefits and merits, that's an easy thing. And if you need some more info on that, check out my blog at whistlestoptruckstop.ca. There's a blog I wrote in there called Alberta Independence, Necessary and Inevitable. Read that one. It's got most of the arguments against independence. It's got my rebuttals and facts beside it, and you can use that to talk to your neighbors. But your single greatest mission right now is to break down that emotional barrier that people have put up between themselves and the truth. And we're not going to do that by scolding them or berating them. We're going to do that by maintaining the relationships that we have right now. You know, we all have like our circle of trust kind of thing, people we can talk to about anything. Maintain those relationships and slowly work these pieces into the conversation. I have many people in my life that were Federalists up until a couple years ago, but I planted some seeds, I told them a few things, and then as they watched history unfold, boom, now they're an independent Alberta, independence-minded Albertan. That's our job. Not just to share the facts, but also maintain the relationships so that people will be receptive to them. If we do that, there is a very, very good chance that we'll see a referendum next year and we'll get a positive result if we work hard. But it's going to take a lot of hard work. The Alberta Prosperity Project has 16,000 volunteers waiting in the wings, ready to go. We have potentially a referendum coming up in spring, early summer, something like that. That means that every single person who believes in this mission has to get involved. You have to be ready to have these conversations. You need two things. You need the facts. You can find them at the APP website. You can find some of them on my blog. And you have to have the ability to connect with people on an individual basis, on an emotional level, so that they're receptive to the facts. And if we do that, and we do that together, we're going to see the most amazing, free, wealthy province, country that this world has ever seen. And actually, there is one more thing. If we don't, we might end up walking, to Mexico together. So there is that.
Which one, Max? Q&A. During the Q&A, we're going to hand around some bins for donations. This is where I do my Vanna plug. APP runs on donations. We don't have a sugar daddy. It just comes from the ordinary grassroots people. So we're going to pass around the bins. Things like halls cost money, gas costs money, other things cost money. This is one. I get to do a little plug here. These trifold brochures, they're kind of amazing little pieces of paper. They're something that you can just easily hand to somebody and say, well, just why don't you read about this? It's not offensive, it's not whatever. I started carrying a purse so I could carry these in my purse. And you know how many I handed out today at the credit union? 2. I went to Penhold gas station. I was actually Tim Hortons. I handed out 4. I just said, you guys know anything about Alberta independence? The one guy says, well, yeah, other than we need to. I said, have you read anything? No. Handed them off and went off to my thing. Get the information in their hands. They'll go to the website and they'll look it up. Another thing we're doing, and they did this in Red Deer already, they're not done, door hangers. This is where our volunteers come in. I'm not talking door knocking. I'm not talking knocking and say, do you know anything about Alberta independence? Taking a thing about this size and you hang it on people's doors. If somebody comes, you can have a very brief conversation because that's not what we're there for. You just kind of say, this is some information you might need in the spring. Thank you, and off you go. So it's non-confrontational. You can do it. And we need volunteers to walk around different places and hang them on the doors. So it's not difficult, some of the volunteering, and we do need people. And so there are little cards back there, a piece of paper to sign up for volunteering, and we'll use you. So, anybody have a question? Just put up your hand. Thank you. Yep, you're going to take that one. I need Chris and Kathy. I'm not answering the questions. Oh, you're there.
Who wants the question here? Just going to lay the microphone.
Oh, Alan does.
So we try to keep the questions 30 seconds and under. No statements. Go ahead.
Somebody asked about the book that Chris mentioned. It's Bonhoeffer, Bonhofffer.
Perfect. What do you want us to do? Remove that? Okay. Have to pretend we're friends? Okay.
Anybody else have question? Anything? I gotcha.
Hi, I was just wondering, I've been to 3 or 4 of these APPs, and have you seen any like significant numbers of younger people showing up to any of these?
I did an event in Fort McMurray, and the average age was probably 20 years younger than this room. So yeah, they're there, but they're busy. They're out doing things. They're working hard. They're trying to survive, and this isn't really their thing. But yeah, they're there.
Yeah, the young people, they're built different than us, right? All their world is online. It's with their thumbs on their phones. So they're here. We've definitely got the numbers in there, but they're on the Instagram, Facebook, all of that stuff.
I spoke to my son the other day. He works oil patch.
Yeah.
I said, what do you think about Alberta independence? Well, we got to do it, Mom. I had not said a word to him about it. I said, so if I send you the link for the intent to say yes, will you send it to all your friends? Yeah. I have access to the database. I looked him up, and he did sign up.
Yeah. Last week, Angela and I did a video with a young lady who works in one of the camps up at Fort McMurray, and she's surrounded by all these young guys. And we asked her and said, so what's up? What's the conversation up there? And she said, they're all in. They're all in.
Anybody have other questions? Yeah, probably.
Do you see with independence as an opportunity when we write our own constitution to rewrite it completely different and put protections in to save our Christian morals and values that built the country?
Well, we have to, right? Yeah. We wouldn't use the same constitution we have now because it's not working at all. Certainly not in our favor. The constitution we have now is also connected with the Westminster system. I think we've found out that that doesn't work for us. So we would go with a republic, probably, or something like that. And then we would do something really fun, like have a constitutional convention where all of Albertans would be able to have a say and an opinion on what they want in that constitution. And we've got a lot of different ones out there that we can learn from and make sure that we've got things locked up nice and tight.
One second. In an independent Alberta, our constitution is going to be something that we write that tells government what they may do. It is not going to be a document written for us by British elite that tells us what we can do. It's going to be completely the other way around.
Does Alberta Prosperity Prospect have an idea how they might have a different type of relationship than the current governments with Indigenous people?
Well, for starters, we believe that we shouldn't live in some sort of a two-tiered society where one group is, impoverished and the others are not. That's a lot of people have this idea that the federal government is doing things so great for First Nations people that they need to fight to keep those arrangements, those relationships. Well, let me tell you, when you look at the statistics, the way that's worked out for our First Nations brothers and sisters has been absolutely horrendous. Men have a 17-year lower lifespan on reserve than non-First Nations off reserve. Mental health and addictions is 100% increase. Suicide, 40%. Like, the numbers are just absolutely unreal. If you want to have a little bit of a cry tonight, look at the numbers. So what we believe is that Alberta should be built by the people of Alberta together. And I guess at the end of the day, the treaties, and if you haven't read them, read them. They're not that long. The treaties are agreements between the federal government and the First Nations groups. If those First Nations people choose to continue those relationships, that's a contractual thing, that's up to them. Or they could renegotiate with Alberta, and we could fix the things that were done wrong way back in the day and change the outcome for an entire group of people.
Chris, you talked about Constitution, and I think there was a draft submitted by APP to the
There's a working group
legislature?
there's a draft constitution they're working on. They a bunch of smarter people than me locked themselves in a room for an entire weekend. It was a stinky room when they're done. But yeah, they drafted something, and it's a draft. But the reality is, a constitution doesn't come from a group of people like the Alberta Prosperity locked in a room for a weekend. It comes from everybody. So what we're doing is we're doing the foundational groundwork as a recommendation to the people of a new independent Alberta to say, this is what we believe will give us the best possible shot at freedom and prosperity for this province. And then we have a constitutional convention, and everybody chimes in, everybody participates, and we build it together. That's the idea, not a group of elite in a room somewhere.
Something else to think about when we're talking about independence and creating our own nation, our own country, is having been in Canada, forever, for most of us here in the room probably, we're so conditioned to a top-down type of government, right? Like, they tell us, well, this is what you can and cannot do. These are the laws that you have to follow. When you break them, this is what's going to happen. And if we don't like that law because we don't like you, we're going to change it so we can, we're just used to this real top-down. And it's quite something to wrap our minds around the fact that in the new country of Alberta, we write the rules, not the politicians. We write the rules that the politicians are going to have to abide by, not the other way around. And it takes a little time to wrap our minds around that, right? When we're not used to it. But that's what it'll be. And we get a blank slate. So it should be, and it doesn't mean we're going to agree on everything either, by the way. But as long as we've got a majority and we're putting some common sense in it, I think we'll be just fine.
The other document that is out is, sorry, Max, I'm not in front of the camera, but keep walking by the speaker, is the value of freedoms. And that's the fiscal or the financial projections for an independent Alberta nation. And I do have copies at the back. They're $10 a piece, or you can go on the website and print them off yourself. So to be honest, I have not read it. That's not my bag. I might read the Constitution, though, which will be ready for part of the group of APP to peruse, so to the public probably first part of January. And it will be on the website, I think. As far as I know, it'll be on the website, so you can print it off and read it. Mark it up. It's yours. It's just a working copy. If you have suggestions, give them to us. So are there any more questions? Ooh. Robert, and then Jackie, and then the gentleman I don't know.
I'm supposed to ask a question instead of make a statement, but how many people heard on the radio today about this Canadian thing? They're talking about referendum. They're saying we should just have the MLAs do the voting, not everybody. That's a condition that we're in.
Yeah, no.
Politicians got us in this mess. Right? So let's not trust them to get us out of it.
Just wondering, after all of these things that you have done, what seems to be the most, the largest block as far as going forward so we can be independent? Has there been something come up that seems to be insurmountable?
No. The biggest roadblock to an independent Alberta is people's emotional attachment to Canada. That is by far the biggest roadblock. There's a bunch of other things we hear all the time: the landlocked argument, First Nations relationships, international trade, currency, banking, military, all of things like that. By the way, if you want answers to that, it's all in my blog and my website, whistlestoptruckstop.ca, and on the Alberta Prosperity Project. But that, again, it's facts, and we can share that easy. The more difficult thing is the emotional connection.
The second, I just want to add to that, hang on. The second one to that, a very close second, is fear. People are afraid of what they don't know, right? And we're charting a path, literally, to somewhere that is kind of unknown. No other province has done this. So there isn't a map, or like Abraham, right? When God said, hey, go over here, but I'll show you where to go when I feel like it, and I'll let you know when you get there. Like, that's kind of where we're at. And so there is some fear, there's some trepidation, because we don't know what all of the steps are going to look like. We're pretty sure we know what it's going to look like once we arrive. But it's that journey to get there. So I think once we get our heads wrapped around the fact that we're Albertans, we're really, really good at getting things done, and we're even better at helping one another get things done, we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine.
Great presentation, folks. We really appreciate what you're doing for us. My question is, what is going on in our government with all this recall business? And apparently, what is it, 14 now? And our Danielle is caught up in that too. How is that going to impact what we're trying to do here? Or could it, potentially?
So the why, I'll tell you why. It's because in this province, we have a bunch of petulant children who feel like if the government is not going to allow them to do things that go against our values, that they have to get rid of them. That's why it's happening. As for it affecting the outcome of what we're doing here, I don't think so.
I have another theory. I was thinking about this quite a lot. We saw the teachers go on strike, and even though they were promised that they would get everything that they asked for, it wasn't the teachers that moved the goalposts, it was the ATA, right? That moved the goalposts, which put the teachers in a really bad position. Like, that's obnoxious. So we saw that happen. And then when that kind of failed, the folks that run these unions, Gil McGowan, came in and said, oh, well, we're going to get all of these other unions to strike in solidarity with the teachers. But then the folks that belong to those unions saw maybe a little bit of what happened and said, not sure about that. And then that kind of fizzled out, right? And that's good. But what's interesting to me, almost fascinating, is that he continued to try and push and push and push and push. And it was almost like, well, come and look over here at what's going on so that nobody looks over here at the ever-increasing independence movement. Because APP was having meetings everywhere and still is. And the sign-ups were going through the roof, and the Facebook pages are growing. And it can't, like, the horse has left the barn. This is not slowing down. So then, when that didn't work, Operation Recall. That's what, like, it just makes sense to me that they couldn't topple it in any other way, in any other political way. So they thought, well, let's go with Operation Recall instead, because the whole idea, the whole reason for this is to destabilize our provincial government. That's what they're trying to do. So if they can destabilize that government, then the hope is they'll be able to destabilize this movement once you begin to connect the dots. And we're just simply not going to let that happen. We're just not going to let that happen. And now I don't know, well, I think you did say it, like right up to our premier, that they're now wanting to recall. Like, that's a direct shot across the bow, as far as I'm concerned, which is a ridiculous shot across the bow, because she has not said that she's for independence. She has said she will allow a referendum to be held. And so that's all it is. They're running out of anything to use against us. So now they're going to try and destabilize our provincial government. Knowing that, we need to make sure to band together. This is not the time to separate from the provincial government that we have. This is not the time to trash talk them. This is not the time to get, to get all miserable. This is the time to say, no, the Conservatives are going to come together. And it might be, like, if all of these recalls are successful and they get the signatures that they need and there's all these by-elections, it's possible that now we have a spring snap election, because why have all these by-elections? That doesn't make sense. If there's 14 or 15 by-elections, that's a stupid amount of money. So it might be that they just, okay, well, we'll have a snap spring election. At the same time, we'll have all of these referendum questions, including the independence one. And folks, that is not the day to stay home. I cannot stress that enough.
Are there any more? Oh, yeah. So while I'm running over there, do you see this freedomcalendar.net? This is Max. And how many people are online, Max? 100 or 100 and whatever? He is live streaming this tonight.
Yep.
And if you can't, you can go on here. So take a picture of this and go on. You can get, how many are on there, Max?
I do have around 155 people
Yeah.
online, which is
Online.
awesome.
Who has a question?
Also, on the other hand, I know that for some people, they were not able to make it out here because of
The weather.
the bad weather. I have some papers here. If you want to give me your phone number so I can text you the address of the links of the live stream. I live stream on YouTube, Facebook Live, Rumble, X, and Telegram. So I will be around here at the very front. If you want to give me a phone number, I'm just going to write it down, and once you get home or tomorrow morning, you'll get the streaming link so you can watch it and give it to your friends who can come here.
Yeah. And there's also lots of other links for bigger town halls where Mitch Sylvester and Dennis spoke and all kinds of people. So take a picture of that so you remember, and then go have a peek. Question?
Hi, Chris. Do you have any takeaway from the AGM last weekend, the UCP? Could you give us your thoughts, please?
Well, the most surprising thing is I learned the most Albertan man in the world might be real. Like, I shook his hand, so there's that.
He changed in height a lot depending on who he was standing
that's right.
with.
Yeah, and somehow when I was talking to him, the video made it look like I smiled, but most people know that I don't smile. Anyhow, the biggest takeaway from the UCP AGM was that the vast majority of Conservatives in this province support Alberta independence. The vast majority. The second takeaway was that even though I wish things could be a little bit different, Danielle Smith seems to be doing exactly what she said she was going to do when she was elected. She campaigned on the Alberta Sovereignty within the United Canada Act. She said she was going to do everything she could to make it work and fix things so that we didn't have to have a referendum, and she's trying to do that. I also noticed that the federal government is continuing to be the best sales team ever for Alberta independence. So, we just keep doing what we're doing. The government is going to do what they do, but I will tell you this. Alberta Prosperity Project is nonpartisan. We're not going to tell you who to vote for or anything like that. But what I can tell you is that of the two possible outcomes for governance in this province, there is one whose leader has said she will respect the will of the people, and if we want a referendum, she will get us a referendum. She's said that. And the other leader has said something like, please give me your children so we can give them pornographic books in libraries. We also want to tell them that they're the other gender, or some things like that. By the way, you're going to be forever Canadian. So as an independence-minded Albertan, I know where our best possible outcome lies, and that's with the government we have right now.
I'm not an APP member, just vote UCP. I'll just tell you who to vote for. I'm not bound by anything. Any challenges, you guys, to this? Anything you're not sure about? Any questions that come up that you guys have a hard time kind of balancing that people come to you with?
In my mind, I'm trying to fathom how does that work if we vote on the referendum to separate.
Yeah. Then what?
Then what?
Then what? So we vote on the referendum, and it passes with flying colors, and no matter what they try to throw at us or who they have scrutinizing or whatever, it still passes, because don't think there won't be shenanigans taking place in the middle of all of this. There definitely will be. That obligates our premier to then enter into negotiations with the federal government and First Nations and the other province. Nobody gets a veto. Everybody has to show up at that negotiating table. So it's very likely that she's going to put together a group, a committee of some description, I don't know what she'll call it, and it will be their job under her leadership to negotiate our removal from Canada. Now, how long those negotiations take, we don't know. That's one of those unknowns, right? What kind of give and take will be part of those negotiations, we don't know. There might be some concessions that not everybody's going to be happy with, but take your pick. Like, do you want to be free or not? That's going to be really the end of the day. I'm not saying we give away anything either, but we're going to have to make sure that we're reasonable about it and realize that the end is going to justify the means. And then it's just time to get all of those I's dotted and T's crossed. If the federal government drags their heels, because that probably won't happen, right? But if they do, well, then there's some other avenues that we can take where we can make a few phone calls to some other countries and say, hey, would you recognize us as an independent nation? We got one for sure. Do we have two? Mexico said? Oh, there we go. Look at that. And anybody else that says, yes, this is a great idea. And then we go from there. Typically what will come up after we give that answer, because it is a right answer, is then someone will say, well, what about the military? What if Canada sends in their military to stop us?
all three?
And I'm like, you can't be serious. Like, they still have tampons in the men's washroom. No. Like, really, and I don't say that in jest for the soldiers, for the men and women in uniform. I say that, like, the institution of the Canadian military is in serious want, obviously. They just had to push a bunch of paperwork to get 300,000 more, like, to bring up their numbers of people who have never even seen a gun, let alone know what to do with it, right? So what could go wrong? Exactly. What could go wrong? So I don't think we really need to worry about that. The other thing I like to remind people is if they're worried about any kind of military action, they've never really been to rural Alberta. We're fine. We're good. So those kinds of questions come up. But it's really time. But there'll be some certain steps. The thing of it is that the Clarity Act walks us through to get the referendum, right? And then that's it. then it just drops off the cliff after that. Then it's political will to get the rest of the way. So we just have to have a stronger political will than Ottawa, and I don't see that being a problem.
In the interest of time, I'll ask you guys if you want me to do this. Do you want me to put on my premier hat and tell you what I would do? Day one after a successful referendum, I would legislate an Alberta Ministry of Independence. And I would put them to work doing everything we could immediately. All of the things that we could take control of now, which we already should have, policing, pension, immigration, tax collection. What's the other one? Immigration, tax, policing. I always miss one. Deportations. Anyway, I would take control of all those things and begin the process while we were negotiating. And the reason I would do that is because while the Clarity Act says the referendum will trigger negotiations which may result in secession, reading between the lines says may not as well, right? The reality is, look at what we're facing right now within Canada. It's not just the federal government. I mean, Mr. Blanchette is saying, oh, I have a serious problem with a pipeline from BC to Alberta. I don't know if that was a French accent, but that's what he's saying. He has a problem and he doesn't want to allow this. Well, Quebec has basically half the votes in Parliament. You know, British Columbia, their premier is saying we will never allow a pipeline. The Federation of, or the, what's it called? The United, the BC Chiefs. The BC Chiefs and the First Nations group are saying no pipeline ever. They're not saying, hey, we want to be consulted once time. They're saying no pipeline ever. So the idea that Alberta has even a hope of being able to negotiate, even if the federal government said we're going to leave you alone, you're autonomous, collect your own taxes, do all these things, we're never going to pass a law that interferes with you, we're still stuck with that, yeah. So I would do everything I could day one and get ready because we need to be ready.
Yeah, it's on.
Well, I don't know how to say this, but you're not premier. And it is in Alberta legislation that has to deal with the results of the referendum if it goes positive. So they may not pick somebody like you to negotiate it.
Well, that's fine, but tell me which piece of Alberta legislation deals with the referendum.
All I'm saying is people have to be aware it is whoever is in control of the government, and that could be the NDP, that will have to deal with it.
That's right.
It's the government
That's right.
moves forward. APP isn't in control anymore. You're only giving advice.
Well, I would beg to differ.
government.
I will beg to differ. It's not the government that's in control. It's us. It's we are in control. And when we have a referendum and the referendum is successful and the majority of Albertans say this is what we want, we have taken control. And the government is responsible to do what we want them to. And if they don't, the movement is so big that the government may not be the government. Like I'm probably not going to be the premier. I'm probably not going to be negotiating. But the vast majority of Alberta, say 65%, will be the ones that control that outcome, period.
It's going to be the government that does do it, and it's politics involved all along. But it's a lot better than what we're dealing with Ottawa right now. We have no say, and the billionaires are controlling us. I have to say, we have to talk to all of our people to get, everybody here needs to talk more. There's a lot of people that aren't in favor. And I know people that go door to door for APP in Calgary, and they just don't care. They don't want to be involved in any kind of separation. It all sounds good here, but there's a lot of opposition out there, and we have to get the word out. You have to talk. It's not up to these few people that are doing such a great job getting the word out. Everybody here has to talk to people.
You're right. Yep. We did. Is there Is there any more questions?
Also, get your UCP membership. I sit on this Camrose board even though I don't live here. I sit on the Wetaskiwin board. I don't live there either. Get your membership, because if there is a snap election in the spring, doesn't require a membership, but get it. It helps bolster the confidence in the government that is happening at this moment. It puts the fear of God into the NDP.
Chris, if the opportunity or the need came, would you consider running for premier?
Well, it depends. It depends. One thing that Alberta did that I wasn't a fan of is they canceled the government aviation service. We have a big province. So I'll tell you what, you put my face on a 747, sure, I'll put my name on a ballot.
Tim.
If I could just make one statement here, I like what you said earlier. It's because men like us didn't stand up. Men have been pushed down for the past 50 years, and it's time for men to stand up, and women to stand up. You know, November 11th, we celebrated 80 years of the end of WW2. And we had our forefathers bleed and die for the beautiful lives that we've been able to live in this country, that built this beautiful country. And ever since then, there is also an elephant in the room, which is a spiritual battle going on right now. We have Islamization taking over the whole world in all countries. And then we have the government taking Christianity out up top. So we're sort of caught in the middle. And we've never had to, for 4 generations, we've all been beneficiaries of this beautiful country. And it's time for men to stand up. And we don't want to be known as a generation that, for the benefit of our children and grandchildren, we don't want to be known as a generation that forgot how to fight.
I just want to clarify. I feel like I didn't give you the answer that you probably should have got. Here, people ask me all the time if I'm going to run as a politician or something like that, and my answer is, I'm going to serve this movement in whatever way I think is the best. So if there's people that want me to step up and do something like that, I would do that in service. If people want me to continue speaking for the Alberta Prosperity Project on Alberta independence, I'll serve in that capacity. I'm just a voice. I'm a dude with a phone, and whatever I can do to contribute to the prosperity of the people in this province, which will be a country, that's what I'm going to do. Also, I want my face on the airplane.
I always say we need to have the courage of our forefathers. My grandfather came up from Omaha, Nebraska. My great-grandmother came from England with a house full of servants to a granary in Hazar. Can you imagine? She'd probably never even really cooked. And she comes to a wooden granary with maybe a little round wood burning something in the corner, and that's what she was supposed to deal with in the winter. She lived till she was like 90. But we need to put on that. And so when I say I go around and I give out these pamphlets, it's because it's important. And it's just a conversation. What do you know about Alberta independence? Don't know much? Here, go read. Bye, see you later. It doesn't have to be an emotional, all-out fight at that moment, right? It's just give them the information. Because a lot of these people, and I'm finding out, a lot of these people that we see every day don't know anything. And that becomes our responsibility.
Just, I guess, in closing, as people are starting to get ready to go, it's been said already tonight, it's worth saying it again. This is a good and evil battle. And I think a lot of us know that. So whether your prayer time is in the morning or at night or both or throughout the day, make sure you put Alberta independence in those prayers. That you're asking the Lord to bless us, to give us the wisdom, to know what to do, how to do it, how to help people understand the message, what words to say, that the Lord would open up pathways for us to get the right people in place to take this across the finish line, and would give us favor with our friends and our family and our neighbors. Because without him, this is not going to get done.
I want to thank everybody for coming. We were hoping there was going to be 12 or 15 because of how the roads were. And there is, how many? 100? 97 to 100. So thank you all. Safe journey on your way. Pray for each other as you're driving down the roads and for yourself because they're going to be slippery, I think.
Plus 182 people watching online.
182 online. Okay.
Are you sure you don't go?